Okay, is this the year that a Game of Thrones actress can finally win an Emmy? I'm Tom O'Neill of Gold Derby here with Joyce Ang, Daniel Montgomery, Susan Wazena, and we're going to get to the bottom of this because Peter Dinklage wins every year, right? What's going on with the women? I have a theory, and let me start here. I'm Tom O'Neill, the editor. Let me start here with my theory. I think in the past at Game of Thrones, we've seen Peter Dinklage, get these drunk scenes, these big emotive scenes, and we get on the female side, we just get Lena Headey looking into the distance saying, "I shall get the Iron Throne," and is that the problem, Joyce?
Somewhat. I do agree that they have not written the women well in the past, and they have tried to rectify some of that. And some of the women in the final season did get better storylines and, some good endings. But, in Lena Headey's case, they still underwrote her in the final season. Like, she was still standing on a balcony, sipping wine, staring out into distance. Like, the most she ever spoke was when she requested elephants. And then she was missing from some major episodes. So I think a lot of people were prepared before this final season to coronate her, to finally get her an Emmy, but she had no material this season. So I don't know if it's going to happen for her.
Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Game of Thrones, if they were writing strategically, because she's been nominated like 3 or 4 times. People have wanted her to win more than once up to this point, but it hasn't happened for her. It felt like if they were going to write for anyone this season, it should have been her, to get her, just to get her an Emmy. Do like the SVU thing where they give Mariska Hargitay one big episode and she gets to cry and scream and beat like a serial rapist or something. But Game of Thrones style. Well, everyone's a serial rapist on Game of Thrones, so but
what
yeah,
a sick burn.
But Lena Headey had so much support and so much momentum going into this season. Like, she could have been the John Hamm of Game of Thrones, where it's like finally she wins.
Phone it in, doesn't matter. Right.
But they didn't. Yeah, they didn't give her the material. They didn't give the character a very worthy death.
Even she came out like 2 days ago saying she wished Cersei had a better death.
Yeah,
we haven't talked to the showrunners about it yet.
She was this huge, amazing, over-the-top villain. Well, not over-the-top in terms of performance, but that kind of persona. But, she really kind of went out with a whimper. It's like, oh, my city is burning. Let me go into the crypt and then get buried by rocks. Like, literally what happened to her.
You don't even see her and Jaime die. The rocks just fall, and then the next episode, they're under the rocks.
They even cheat her out of that. That's awful. Hey, I'm all about Maisie. I always think Maisie has been underappreciated, and I think that she's always had a kind of emotional subtlety to her performance that, as a viewer, I've appreciated. And it's not as bombastic. It's not bombastic at all. But I think it's been there. And then this season, if you look at Gold Derby's odds and the predictions, you see she's now out front of all those other co-stars of hers in terms of likelihood of winning. So let's talk about Maisie versus Gwendolyn. What's her name?
Gwendolyn Christie.
Thank you. Okay. Because those are game changers, those two. One of those two, at least one will be nominated, probably both, and one could win, right?
Yeah, I think we knew from when our fellow editor Chris Beecham got all the information from the networks, we knew that Game of Thrones was entering Maisie Williams, Lena Headey, and Sophie Turner for Best Supporting Actress. When the ballots came out, we saw Gwendolyn Christie's also been entered for consideration. She plays Brienne of Tarth. She is a fan favorite character. She had a substantial screen time this season, although she, like many others, had a fairly controversial story arc where she sort of gets knighted by Jaime, and then she goes to bed with Jaime, and then she cries over Jaime when he leaves. So I don't think that helps, but I don't think anyone blames Gwendolyn Christie for that. I think everyone really admires her and her performance. And she and Maisie Williams are similar in that they both play these women who are fighting the male kind of the gender roles that they're prescribed with. They're both, sort of warriors in a place where women are expected to be maidens and dainty and delicate, and they're really fierce fighters. So I think that helps them both. Maisie has the benefit of the fact that she had a good story arc in the last season, and she had plenty of screen time. She's not the most emotive character, but she had really strong moments. She got to kill the Night King.
You root for her, too.
You root for her. She has that strong rooting factor. She's very young she's like 22 years old. And so she's uncharacteristically young for this category, or for really any Emmy categories. They don't skew that young for actors usually. But she honestly might be the strongest of the Game of Thrones contenders, just based on the material from the season.
Yeah, and she's already gotten in before. She got in 3 years ago when she was 19, so she can definitely get back in. And she started, people were already predicting her, but after the long night, when she kills the Night King, that's when you saw her go up. Because that's one of, even though you had no idea where she came out of to jump in and kill him, but that's, one of the better moments of the season and what you remember. So I think she's definitely in the top 2. And I just think the whole problem with the 3 of them and Sophie Turner, who's never been nominated before, is that they could just split the vote.
And that's a thing now, where it wasn't.
Yeah, because 3 years ago, when they got 3 of them in, when Emilia Clarke was still in supporting, they got Amelia, Maisie, and Lena. And I remember everyone immediately just voting for Lena in their prediction center. And I was like, nope, they're going to split the vote. And I stuck with Maggie Smith all the way.
I did too.
You can't go wrong with Maggie Smith, right, Susan?
That is true.
Let's jump categories for a second here to the other Game of Thrones stars. Emilia Clarke is competing in lead. I see that she's not going to be nominated according to Gold Derby's odds. And of course, Kit Harington is competing in lead and was nominated in the past 2. And we thought he was going to win, or he was nominated in supporting, right? What can either of them finally win?
I don't think they can win necessarily, because Game of Thrones the voters have always been, or the actors branch voters have always been skittish around Game of Thrones. It's so interesting to have the show. It's won more Emmys.
Except if you're Peter Dinklage.
Except if you're Peter Dinklage, yeah. It's won more Emmys than any other primetime drama or scripted primetime drama or comedy in history. But only one actor from the show has ever won.
He's won so often. I think it's 3 times now, right?
3 times, yeah.
He tied the record this year.
Exactly. He tied the record with Aaron Paul.
Yeah, so I don't know how much broad support in the actors branch there is for the show. And the fact that it was a controversial season, I don't know how much more support they would get than usual. I think Emilia Clarke gets into actress. I think they both could be nominated. I think Emilia is the stronger chance to be nominated. She had certainly the most controversial story arc.
Yeah, and then there's also some people might just feel like she was done dirty by the writing. I mean, a lot of people were done dirty by the writing, but her character, especially when her heel turn was just so abrupt, there was no setup for it. So she did the best she could with the material. So there might be some actors commiserating, I've been through that, you did good, Amelia, with Danny all these years.
Yeah, sympathy votes for having invested so much in this character and then having all of that kind of turned over in 2 episodes.
What about poor Kit Harington? Come on. When we were all predicting him to win a few years ago, he had the emotion stuff. He had the over-the-top grandiosity, the importance. Jon Snow dominated the season. And of course, who won, Joyce?
Ben Mendelsohn, the ghost of Ben Mendelsohn on Bloodline, who wasn't even there.
I know. So my point here would be that sometimes it takes voters a little while to catch up with what is actually on the screen. So could that be to Kit Harington's advantage this time? In other words, that he wins now for that season, or plus his work this year, of course.
I think Kit Harington Kit Harington's problem is not that he gave a worse performance than Emilia Clarke this season, but that his category is more crowded than Emilia's. Because, Best Drama Actress, there's only one woman eligible this year who was nominated last year, and that's Sandra Oh. So there's like that race is wide open, for new nominees to come in. Best Drama Actor isn't as empty. It's still got like Bob Odenkirk, Jason Bateman, Sterling K. Brown, who could return, and so it's a little bit more crowded for him. Plus, he has that sort of, we talk about like slap the stud with the Oscars mostly, but he is that young kind of pretty boy, perception of him as an actor, up against these, Brian Cox and these, older, more veteran actors.
I bet you're betting on Richard Madden to be nominated, right?
To be nominated, but I'm not sure he wins. And he's
hypocrite.
Well,
but we could have Rob Stark beat Jon Snow.
Which would be such sweet revenge after, speaking of being done dirty, he got
the king in the north.
Yeah, Rob Stark was like slaughtered during the Red Wedding, and now he comes back to win an Emmy.
Okay, well, never mind what we think. Those of you watching and listening to this discussion, you tell us what you think. Go to Gold Derby's Prediction Center, log your predictions. They affect our odds, which are watched and monitored closely every day by Hollywood. Your predictions matter. Make them now and prove us wrong.